to support CASA through both direct point-to-point agreements as well as underneath the NASA umbrella with the full Space Act agreement. JPL has unique capabilities, as some of you know. We will be highlighting those throughout the day and hope that that helps identify specific areas of contribution. I look forward to outcomes from the workshop that begin to yield a tremendous future partnership, and thank you all for coming.
Cassini to Saturn, Magellan to Venus, as well as mini Mars mission. I'll talk some of the Mars mission stuff here. So my talk is really kind of an overview of what we do with entry, descent, landing at JPL, but I realize the topic is so large, my talk is actually 2.5 hours long. But I really had a struggle compressing it down. So really, unfortunately, most of my technical material is on a single word slide, which I really hate. So let me talk about it. So when you first, you guys recognize those pictures? Have you seen that before? Those are images taken from a camera on the Perseverance rover on Mars. And it was looking straight up, clicking up at that thing, which is a lander, which doesn't really touch down. It lowers the rover down on 3 ropes, and once the rover's on the ground, the descent, that's called the descent stage, as part of the sky crane maneuver, cuts away and flies away and crashes on Mars about 600 meters away. And so that's sort of an iconic view of our JPL's entry, descent, landing world. I hope I got it right, because I've never done this slide before, but I want to give a little chronology of I believe, most of humanity's explorations, landings on the moon and Mars. So I thought I'd go through that historically, just kind of point, because I want to give a context for what JPL's been doing in this world, because some of you may not know, or weren't born yet. That's another problem. Well, you young people out there. So with respect to the moon chronology, it started with a series of 7 missions, starting with Luna 1, I think, I forget the number now. This is the USSR's first lander on the moon in early 1960s, 1963, I believe. And a series of them went through until about 1976 on the surface of the moon, which started the exploration efforts of the United States behind the USSR at the time, and JPL created these lunar surveyors, and over the course of a few years sent 5 surveyors to the surface of the moon, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. Followed by the famous Apollo landers, which sent astronauts to the moon. Only 5 of them, but they were quite successful. But I think the United States rightly got afraid of Apollo's the next landing. It turns out Apollo was built. The technology in the 1960s was very, very thin. We didn't have computers. Almost everything was built and designed by hand on paper, using pencils and erasers and human computers in a lot of cases, right? So it was a different time. At the same time, USSR at the time, Russia, developed the Mars 3, landed the Mars 3, the very first lander. It only lasted for a few seconds on the surface of Mars, but I counted it as a success. But very soon thereafter, NASA came along with the Vikings, the 2 Viking landers, Viking 1 and 2, as well as 2 orbiters. But the landers landed in 1976 and convinced us that Mars was a sterile, hostile place, not a good place to raise your kids.
To quote David Bowie.
To quote David Bowie, or Elton John, actually. So check this out. There's a 20 years. So the next landing on Mars, or anywhere, was Mars Pathfinder in 1997, 20 years after the Viking landers. I was fortunate enough I was the chief engineer for that mission, developing the Mars Pathfinder lander and getting on the surface of Mars. So nothing had been on Mars or the moon in that period of time, at least
To forecast the impact of solar activities on both Earth and spacecraft. The mission will pave the way for both crewed and uncrewed Moon-to-Mars space exploration, boost space tourism, and expand our reach into deep space. Proactively prepare for space weather disasters caused by solar activity, and establish a foundation for optical communication. Will be the world-first pioneering mission, contributing to international advancements in space exploration. A challenge of kind for opening a new era is ongoing.